Hey there, and welcome to another Nerdy Reviews. I'm the Absolute Nerd, or you can just call me Briston, and today we're going to be reviewing Gundam Build Fighters. Now, before I begin with any of the spiels and stuff like that, let me just give you this real quick. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys. Do you like the series? What do you think about my comments about it? Those sort of things. Leave something down below. Anyways, let's just go ahead and jump right into today because honestly, I have a whole lot I want to kind of say about this series, but at the same time, I don't, and I want to keep it short for you guys. I've been trying to keep this short. It's really hard. But anyways, let's just start off something simple. What's the story about this anime? So in short, the Gunpla builder Sayori teams up with Reiji here to participate and fight in the 7th Gunpla Battle World Championship. That is just the baseline, super simplistic. Honestly, it doesn't really change too much from there. It's a pretty straightforward anime. I say it in this manner because unlike most Gundam series so far, this is a very different one. Very, very different. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. But one thing I do want to elaborate on that, this is actually a 25 episode series. Very, very short for a Gundam series itself. Originally aired in Japan back on October 13th of 2013. Just some basics on it. I mean, the animation, you can kind of see in this still here itself. This is actually the front cover of the Blu-ray itself. But the animation's pretty much itself. It's very crisp, very clean. I don't really have too much to say or may say on the animation. Didn't notice anything like air-wise or whatnot, but it was really, really enjoyable, really, really light and nice. I like a lot of the character designs and animation too, so I got nothing there really to say negative about. Music in this series is a little bit weird. It's got a nice little mix of like techno punk with like exciting fighting music. Kind of has like a little weird like Japanese rap almost at times. I can't really tell. So it's like I said, it's very weird. At times it works and at times it doesn't work. So it's a little hit and miss with this series. But I mean, for the most part, the music's all right. Nothing too super memorable about the music, at least. Voice acting, yeah. Okay, so here's another good example of where the dub kind of falls flat in some cases for anime. When it comes to Build Fighters, the dubbing is okay. I mean, everyone kind of fits their role for the most part. I feel like some characters could have been, like some other actors could have been replaced for somebody else that could fit the character a little bit more. I think more so. So China right here, which is one of our side characters too. I don't like her voice actress. I didn't feel like she fits her role that well. Too pitchy at times, and I get that they're kids, but everybody else sounded fine, and she just sounded super way off. Nothing bad about the voice actress. She didn't break in her lines or anything like that. I just didn't feel like her voice fits this character at all. Just did not work out. The second thing I want to talk about too is that the voice actress for Sei sounds like Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. I kind of mentioned this too because I want to move into the next, not weird thing, but it's weird and unique when it comes to Build Fighters. Unlike most Gundam series that we have seen thus far, or I've covered and reviewed, every Gundam series is pretty much, although they might have a different story with different cast and characters, they pretty much fall in line with the same things that you would expect when watching a Gundam series. You're getting like a war story, you're getting a lot of characters, whether or not you like them or not, but they're interesting enough to follow and wanting to know what's going on with them. And or we're also following a lot of these themes of like war is hell, whoever wins the innocent lose, those sort of things. And then there's additional ones that come through them too. So we kind of have these expectations about what a Gundam series is. And of course, giant robots. Take all of what you know about Gundam, and when you're trying to watch Build Fighters, you're kind of throwing that out the window. The only thing that Build Fighters is really going to be doing, let me put it in most simplistic terms. It's a lighthearted shonen anime. That's the most simplistic way I can put it for you guys. I can compare it to other lighthearted animes, and well, some of them might not be lighthearted, but in the same tone, and I'll elaborate more too. Like Pokemon, Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh, the Digimon series as well. So these are like series I want to mention, like where it's lighthearted. Yes, some of them that I mentioned can get pretty dark, like Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! But the idea behind it is that it's more or less covering a product and then having a story with it. Yes, Gundam does have its history with trying to cover a product and then having a story with it, but usually it's the story first, then the product later. Bill of Fighters does something very different in that it feels very much like those shows that I had mentioned. Very lighthearted, not that dark. There are some dark moments, but in all honesty, it's like comparable to like, not really comparable to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Digimon, but it's lighter, much lighter than any Gundam series that we have covered thus far. That's something it's very weird. So watching this series as a Gundam fan, it's very nice because what Build Fighters tends to do is that it tends to do a lot of homages. Of course, we have Gundams, we have mobile suits, we have Gunpla. My god, the word Gunpla is said in this series so much, I think if you try to do a drinking game with it, you will not survive an episode. I just gotta put that out there and make a light little joke, but seriously, the word Gunpla is used so much that it's kind of funny because we talk about the Gundam series in the series itself, but oftentimes they really refer to it as Gunpla, not Gundams or mobile suits or anything like that. So it kind of goes right back to the whole anime about a product and not so much as an anime to be itself, right? But just like other predecessors beforehand, like Pokemon and Digimon and so forth, even though it's covering a product, it has a lot of respect to the source material and basically tries to appeal towards all audiences. So yes, it's not going to appeal towards major streamlined Gundam fans or people who are coming into Gundam. It's not going to appeal to a lot of Gundam fans in the sense that we're going to see a dark story. We're going to see a war-torn story or characters that have been driven to the fight or conflict or anything like that. What we're following around is just middle schoolers basically trying to participate in a tournament. And literally, it's almost slice of lifey. We got a lot of the shonen-esque portions with the fights of the mobile suits and the cool little systems, but we also get very differences in that it's just mostly following their lives. So we get to follow a little bit of their comedic antics and stuff like that, meeting different characters. So that's what I'm talking about when it's very lighthearted. Nothing's really super serious. Outside of that one, I'm trying to like just put my thoughts into it. Like the best way I could really put this series to in that kind of frame of mind, in difference, like it's homaging and differences from Gundam, right? So we're set in a real world, and in this real world, they basically use Gunpla to play in a video game system or a video game based-esque system where they will battle out their Gunpla to see who is the better pilot. Fighter, I'm not sure how you want to put it. Let's just put it under a fighter, right? And you get a lot of different little antics and material out of that, so give or take. Much of the series, and I don't know if it's a true inspiration or not, I feel is very much like G Gundam, right? They take a lot of like the fiery elements, especially with Rei's character, basically, or Reiji's character. They take a lot of his energy and whatnot. I feel like it's something from like Domon almost. But we got a lot of this G Gundam like shonen heart strength, like fighting to be the best Gunpla battler and stuff like that. We also get these tournament arcs. So if you're familiar with shonen anime, a lot of times that shonen anime also has these tournament arcs. Well, the whole entire series itself is literally building up towards the tournament itself. So we got our first half of the series introducing us to a lot of our characters, getting familiar with them, going through some of their little antics and adventures. And then when we build up and when we finally cascade in towards the actual tournament itself, that's where really things go off from there. But it's a very straightforward anime. There's nothing too much crazy or special about it besides some weird elements. So that's where I'm like, so talk about weird elements in this series here. It's also something that we haven't seen in the Gundam series yet, which is fantasy-based elements. So we kind of have a funny idea about Reiji's character. I'm not going to spoil too much here, but we kind of get these little bit of a fantasy elements with Reiji's character alongside with some of the fights themselves too. So it's a little bit unique in that sense. So it's like trying to base it in some level of reality, but at the same time having some level of fantasy. And not just talking about, the sci-fi fantasy of it all, but something a little bit more to it. They dive a bit more into the series, but I just thought it was kind of a little bit fascinating and unique with this series itself. As I was mentioning earlier too, this series does an interesting job of kind of meshing and homaging Gundam with non-Gundam fans. So they keep it kind of neutral by talking about Gundams and mobile suits as Gunpla. They keep it very neutral at that level where, yes, Gundam fans can relate to it because, some of us have actually bought Gundam models. I myself have bought a Gundam model and more than that, but we can relate to that. And then, of course, with non-fans, they're coming into it as an anime, or they're aware about Gundam, or they're aware about models. So they try to keep it in line with just that kind of factor. I think they did a great job of just like making it more of a streamlined series, making it more accessible, making it a lot more fun to watch. It's not like I know like a lot of people have issues watching Gundam itself sometimes because they're, a war drama is not exactly what people are always interested in. So this anime in particular, and I call it an anime, it's not too much like a Gundam series because it doesn't fit in the Gundam continuity necessarily, but it is Gundam itself. Really, it just is it's an interesting job of, again, incorporating including people, both fans and non-fans alike. They throw in, for fans, for an example, they throw in a lot of homages, a lot of references, and of course, different mobile suits. We see in Gundams too. We see all sorts of different suits and Gundams from various series in the past. Various series. We also get a lot of nice mashups. That's a cool thing about this series, that we get to have like different parts being mashed in together with each other, really creating unique designs or really cool looking Gundams or mobile suits. So I thought that was really, really cool, really, really neat. Something we don't get in any other Gundam series for any general portion of it. Other than that, like this, I will tell you this much. As much as I joked about how Gunpla constantly being referenced or used in this series, they really emphasize like the love, the admiration, the desire to build Gunpla and fight with their Gunpla. It's really the key point. Kind of like Pokemon's like befriending, not really capturing, but befriending different Pokemon and having this amazing journey and sort of and that sort of thing. Very similar with Build Fighters, but they really, really amp up the whole love for Gunpla. Again, it's more or less not really an anime turn into a product. It's more of a product turned into an anime. So this whole entire focus about Gunpla is, of course, like trying to sell you more Gunpla and stuff like that. And it kind of grits at times. For me, it doesn't grit me as much. I can see how it might grit others though, because it's constantly thrown in your face. But as much as this series does get that word Gunpla thrown into your face, kind of really does get you want to make Gunpla. I'm not kidding you. This is the second time I've watched this series. I've almost kind of banned my wife from watching it. Long story short, we both had watched this series together, and my wife, who has no interest in Gundam whatsoever, wanted to build Gunpla. She's seen my models before, and she thought that was really, really cool. She like myself, like we like to like do like arts and crafts kind of stuff and like make different things. So it's in her nature to want to do that, and this really, really inspired her. For me, I had inclination to want to build Gunpla again because I've not built Gundam models in forever. So after watching this series, we actually dug through and like found other models that we have not built from my collection and start building from that. So yeah, this series will really inspire you to want to build Gunpla. I will not kid you. And I warn you, if you do not want to get attached to products and stuff like that, you might want to stay away from this series. But in all honesty, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. Well, it's going to be good for Sunrise and everybody else that sells models, but I don't know. It's a great inspiration. It really draws people in. That's the one thing I really want to talk really positive about this series. Again, homage and respect to the Gundam series, the fans themselves too, but it also does its best to really incorporate and try to bring people who have no idea what Gundam is, who has no interest in Gundam whatsoever, and really correlate and really build things together. I thought it was just really interesting that at the time that I had originally watched this, and this is my second viewing, but my first viewing, my wife doesn't care for Gundam, and myself, a huge Gundam fan, watched this together. She was able to enjoy this as an anime series and have a desire to build Gunpla. Me, as a Gundam fan, wanting to watch this as well, enjoyed this as a Gundam fan and wanted to build Gunpla again. And Shazam, we started building Gunpla together. So I think that's just kind of a funny, unique kind of a thing, fun thing itself. Just want to share that with you guys. I do want to also talk about the other two portions of this series, because this series is not just by itself. Oh no, it's incorporated with ONAs, or original net animations. Those are basically shorts that were online originally. Now they are now available on Blu-ray. Give me one moment here. As I had already mentioned here, the Gunpla series, as you kind of saw on the front cover, here it is right here. But the other two things I wanted to talk about is actually in this special edition. Now, for Build Fighters, they had two things that came out for in particular. One was called GM's Counterattack, and Gundam Build Fighters Battlogue. Now, with those two, they were ONAs, or original net animations, only found originally online. They are now accessible through Right Stuff's Blu-ray right here. Not bad pricing too. But they're very short ONAs here, and they do play relevance towards the series itself. In fact, they have nice little conclusions or tie-ins with the sequel series, which I'll be covering in a little bit too. As for GM's Counterattack, and I'm just going to give you a quick little synopsis here, right? It's a 30-minute ONA, very, very short, but treated like another episode. Basically, it takes place after the series has ended. Literally, the sequel, or somewhat, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. But basically, utilizing this lovely image here, although I don't have nothing for GM Counterattack, but basically, Sei and his friends are trapped by the Gunpla Mafia and must fight their way out. That is basically the story of GM's Counterattack. In fact, here's the funny thing. I thought GM's Counterattack, it has to do something with GMs, which there are GMs involved in the little short. But really, GM was abbreviated for Gunpla Mafia. Yeah. This series does have a lot of fun with like punny kind of things or nice little knocks at stuff. When it comes to GM's Counterattack, though, it's a nice little in-between, or kind of a bridge between Gundam Build Fighters and Build Fighters Try. They have a lot of fun little homages again to a lot of little cameos / knockbacks to the Gundam series itself. And they do have a nice, good amount of fights in there. It's pretty fast. I felt like this entire 30-minute episode itself could have been stretched out into a longer movie, or you could have turned into almost half of a season of a show, right? Another 25 more episodes. But what we got was compressed into 30 minutes. It was like a little bit of story, then fight, and then it ends. Pretty nice, well-contained, very, very fun short, though. I really enjoyed it. Nice little ending, if you will, for Build Fighters, as it is a sequel. Also gives a lot more to character building for Sei right here, which was really, really nice, since we do focus on him a lot. Another one I want to talk about, too, regarding that. So that's all I have to really talk about GM Counterattack. It's a 30-minute short. There's not a whole lot I could really go into, unless I really want to dive into, but I don't want to spoil it too much for you guys. But if you're asking me if it's a recommended watch or anything like that, I think it would be a perfect opportunity. Like, if you do watch Build Fighters, watch GM's Counterattack as well. Again, gives more character building for Sei right here, and there's a lot of the fights are a lot of fun to watch. Aside from that, alongside with this one right here, we have the Battlogue episodes. Now, it's going to be weird because I'm going to have to break this up into two parts with the Battlogue parts, and I'll cover the rest of them in the Try review. But basically the Gundam Build Fighters Battlogue. Basically is another 5 short episodes that cover so 5 short ONA episodes basically. They're roughly about 11 minutes a piece, and each story kind of varies. We have 2 episodes that basically cover from Gundam Build Fighters, and the rest of them come from or either bridge into Build Fighters Try. For this review here, I'm going to be covering basically episodes 1 and 5, since they are the only ones that are really pertinent to Build Fighters. Granted, episode 4 does feature characters from both Try and Build Fighters, but Fighters and Try, but I'm going to treat them one more like Try, since the way combat is like. So all in all, with the Battlogue, the first episode, again, this is not a whole lot to talk about. The fighting in this episode was really, really fun. I like a lot of the homages with using like Char, Ribbons, and Amuro, and a lot like the very end, a CCA reference. I thought that was kind of cool, really, really unique and fun. Not super unique. I mean, we've seen this kind of parodied at times, but I think that was just kind of cool and nice. But it was a fun little fight. Wish it could be a little bit more, but that's all right. The last episode, which is the 5th episode of Battlogue, probably is a really good, solid episode, and I would recommend that viewing on that one. It gives a nice final fight between Sei and Yuki, which is another character in the series, or basically the Meijin. But they have a nice little like final fight, and it really completes Sei's character. I'm not going to go too much into that, but it really completes his character, gives it a nice little finesse, and then a literal finish for Build Fighters. It really concludes everything for Build Fighters perfectly, I think. And then literally like branching us towards going to Try Fighter, or Fighters Try. I definitely will. If anything else, if you're gonna watch the Battlogue and if you don't care like to watch all the episodes, even though they're short, right? People go like, I got time and I don't want to waste my time and watch something I don't care about. I definitely would recommend, if you watch Build Fighters, watch GM's Counterattack and the 5th and final episode of Battlogue to really get the full sense of Build Fighters. I feel like those are nice supplemental episodes that go beyond the final episode of Build Fighters and really just finishes off the series nicely. Not saying that Build Fighters doesn't end nicely itself. I like the way how it ended, but just having those little extra ones adds more to it. Last thing I really want to talk about this series, and just really want to hit home with it. Again, as much of it is a very different Gundam series, not having anything at all really to be correlated with the Gundam franchise. It's so loose with the core elements, it's not even funny. But the one thing is going to be still consistent with it between like any other Gundam series and Build Fighters is the action. A lot of the action in this series is a lot of fun and exciting. Yes, there might be cliched moments, and you go like, well, I already know who's probably going to win and stuff like that. But it's not so much as who's going to win or how you can predict it. It's more or less watching the fights. And the fights themselves are well animated, really, really exciting. Different techniques and different moves are being used in combination or unison with like unique Gundams and mobile suits or unique gunpla. It's really fun to watch this entire series. It's a word I'm going to be using a lot. It's just fun because seriously, this is not like one of those Gundam series where you have to like pay so much of attention to what's going on. It's literally like a day-to-day life kind of a thing. You can literally skip an episode and you'll probably be fine the next one over. There are some that do have pertinence itself, but in all honesty, it's very lighthearted. It's very fun. Takes itself seriously to some moments, but in all, it really just lets go, lets loose, and it's more like a celebration of Gundam. As a Gundam fan, and how I view it, it's more of a celebration of Gundam and welcoming to new fans. I think the action does this series very much justice. If anything else, and what would make a lot of other Gundam fans upset is like the whole story and stuff like that, they don't want to deal with that, that's fine. But I think the action is really where it's at for a Gundam fan. And for people who just generally like anime or are interested in Gundam, I think this is a nice little spot where they can jump in there, jump into the Gundam franchise, enjoy the series, acknowledge some of these cameos, these homages, right? And then when they later go into a Gundam series, or if you go into a Gundam series and you've never seen it before, you're like, oh, I remember this was in Build Fighters and stuff like that. Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know they were referencing this. Oh, that's where this is from? Oh, that's so cool. That's the sort of thing. And again, it's that celebration of Gundam. So I really like how what Build Fighters tries to do. And I really just push away a lot of the naysayers about this series or the Build series itself. But yeah, that's what I want to say about that one. I kind of want to get into spoilers. There isn't a whole lot of spoilers I want to talk about this. It's primarily talking about cameos and the final episode. So you guys can just skip on ahead if you don't want any spoilers. If you're watching this on the stream, just mute me for now until you see the spoiler banner being removed. All right, so let me go ahead and just talk about some spoilers here. So first and foremost, like I mentioned already, I love a lot of the cameos and the appearances in this series. There's a ton of like character lookalikes, mobile suits and Gundams, battle locations like Axis. Am I mixing them up between the Tri Fighters and this? Because where we had Dawn's Island in here, we had Abaraku. We got certain other locations. It's just, again, we got so many cool things that you can pick from all the other Gundam series. But I think the best one that really cascades, I mean, Rama Raw is almost a main character. He's more of a side character, but still. But if we want to talk about something that's really like the grandiose, right, of all cameos and homages, episode 23. But episode 23 has the most cameos character-wise. It is set in a Gunpla festival or carnival, so we get a lot of characters that kind of show up or reappear in this particular episode. It's funny, like, I think this is the longest episode for me to watch because I kept on pausing the episode just so I could name off all the references and, of course, notate it and stuff like that, but it was just fun catching a lot of the references. I think the biggest ones, though, is like I mentioned, this is a homage, though, but I feel like this is like a what if. So if you try to tie in all the Gundam universes together, at some point, yes, Build Fighters is in the same universe or the same universe over a span of time. It makes you kind of think, like, what if these characters kind of got resurrected or put back? So this particular episode I want to mention, though, is because we see a lot of our characters, good or bad, reappear in this particular episode. And either they're like younger versions of themselves or older versions or like just how they were, right? But I think the most touching ones I have seen were the specific families, right? There are certain scenes where we saw family, like a family of Cecily from F91. There was a screen cap of little Cecily with her brother Doriel, her mother, and Kurozo or Iron Mask. Also, like, well, we've never seen Iron Mask without his mask, but like knowing that that's Dorel and Cecily, and we know what her mother looks like too. That's clear cut. That's gonna be Kurozo, and I was like, oh my god, that's crazy how they are building Gunpla together and stuff like that, and they're happy. I'm like, it's kind of sad and tragic because we know what happens in F91. That's the thing. But it's nice to see something happy like that. This is not just for them, but we see it with a couple of other families that had tragic moments in their own series. Another family that we got to see was Domon's family, Domon from G Gundam. We got a young Domon with Kyoji and his mother and his father, and they're all working on building Gunpla. Well, Domon's trying to build, I believe he was trying to build the Burning or the Shining Gundam, and then you have the Spike or Spiegel Gundam Shadow or Spiegel Gundam already created with Kyoji. And I was just like, oh my god, that's just so sad and tragic. But I'm like, it's kind of nice to see them that they're actually happy and they're in a good environment and stuff like that. Not like what actually happens in the series much later on. The biggest one that got me, though, and I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Granted, like, the characters I already mentioned already had, like, tragic moments with their families, but none could be as tragic as this one, which is we also get a another small scene. It's like another screen cap, and it's with Uso from Victory Gundam. It's Uso and his mom and his dad. And I was like, oh. And if I remember, he's showing them his completed V2 Gundam that he just built. And I was like, that's sweet and nice. And it's like, you watch these episodes, like watch this episode and watch those scenes, right? And you don't think much of it if you're not a Gundam fan. Fans of the Gundam franchise might catch on to it if you watch those series. And if you haven't watched those series, you might not catch on. You'll be like, oh, that's so sweet, that's so cute. And then you get the fans like myself who've watched everything, who are familiar with it, and you see those scenes, it's just like, oh man, that's tragically sad, but I'm happy to see that it's a much more happier scene with them. And like, so after all the things that have happened in the past, we come to this current time frame. Maybe they've reincarnated and they have a happier life, a happier ending. So that's something I just wanted to talk about, particularly about episode 23. And as for the final episode, it was a decent final episode. I can't really complain too much of it. So everything building up to it, we got everything that finalized by that point. We got the tournament at its conclusion, or finished off the episode prior, and then crazy stuff kind of happens with the crystal itself. So then we get the actual like everybody combining their strengths together to destroy the crystal and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of cool. One thing I really do like though is having an epilogue. As much as like some people like, well, we didn't care, like these characters might be too bland or when I'm like, you know what? I can't disagree with that necessarily, but what I do like is that when we end a series, we end it off and we get to conclude with our characters. The final episode gives me just that. It gives us time to have an epilogue with our characters. It might not be so grandiose, but we get to still spend more time with our characters, get more familiar with them. So I really like that a lot. Not as much as like other series or other things, but I like to have my little epilogues and spend a little bit more time with our characters, really finalize things and not just end it like that. But yeah, that's what I had to say about that. As for that, let me jump into my next section here, which is my favorite suits of the series. Now, if you're not familiar with this segment here, just like with every other Gundam series that comes into the franchise, we're introduced to a whole new slew of suits, redesigns, battleships, those sort of things. Build Fighters, again, is a little bit unique in this perspective because a lot of it is stuff that we've seen before. A lot of mobile suits, a lot of Gundams from previous series, so it's a little bit hard to say that this is unique in itself. But I digress, and I say the one thing that is truly unique is that we get a lot of suits that are mix and matched. A lot of different suits that are utilizing different things from each other and so forth. So I thought that the only thing that's truly unique about it, we get redesigns, basically. So a lot of them are okay, kind of cool looking, depending on what your taste in mobile suits and Gundams, depending on the franchise itself too. I don't have a whole lot in this series that I really, really liked. I only had a couple of them. Wasn't a huge fan of the main Gundams, and everything was all right. The designs are not bad. Not saying any of them are bad. They're all cool looking in their own respect, but nothing really screams as amazing to me. But there were a couple that made it out here. So first and foremost, the one that made it out is the Crossbone Gundam Mao. Really, really like this Gundam here. It's a really cool, simplistic design itself. Too bad we can't really see it here. It has the crossbone gun swords, basically. I actually like them. It's very weird at times, because it's just like, it doesn't look like a gun, but it is. And then it doesn't really look like a sword because the way it's being held, but it is. But I thought like in unison with the crossbone itself, because the chest, can I actually show it here? The chest actually opens up to do a satellite cannon. And when Mao does this, stretches out his arms like that, and then everything kind of like lights up a bit. So I thought it was really, really cool. Really devastating Gundam in the final episode. So I liked it. Simplicity in itself. I would actually love to find it because I kind of like digging that that the crossbones alongside with the skull on the chest. I think that's kind of unique in the Gundam franchise. I haven't seen anything like that. I mean, we've got crossbone Gundams in the manga and stuff like that, but not like this. And for my favorite suit in this entire series, it's the Kuma 3 Bear Guy 3. So, funny thing about this suit, I actually bought the model and I built it ages ago. I've never seen this series before. And I saw this as a model kit, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta have me a bear guy. This thing is adorably cute. I really, really like it. And then when I got to watch it in the series, it made me even love this Gunpla even more. I mean, look, you can see it right there, animation-wise, right? And then you can see the model itself. Look how cute this is. Hold on. Look how cute this is. I really like this suit here. And then Cheetah's backstory for this suit is really, really cutesy and nice. I just thought it's just a funny, cute little suit, something very unique, something we don't get to see often in the Gundam franchise. So like I said, like I mentioned before too, like how this series has a lot of homages to the Gundam franchise. I think it's a nice little spin on what they do with that material. And sometimes going off the beaten path is really, really nice. Get to see a lot more different scenery things, and that's something what I really liked about it. So we take in a guy and make it really cutesy, and yeah. But yes, the Bear Guy the Third is my favorite one from the series. But I digress here. And let me go ahead and alert our folks here who do not want any spoilers. But yeah, that's all I really got to say regarding like the spoiler stuff and my favorite suits of this series here. Hopefully you all got the come back into here. So I do want to start with my next segment regarding I am new to the Gundam franchise. Should I watch Gundam Build Fighters first? Yes. Actually, I'm going to go against a lot of what I've said in the past too for this particular series. So I'm saying yes, despite that it goes against a lot of what is expected from the Gundam franchise, right? Like, this series is not a good expectation of when you're going into the Gundam franchise. It is absolutely different from every other Gundam series besides any other build series like stuff like Build Fighters Try, Build Divers, or Divers Re-Rise. Much different in comparison to the entire franchise versus those. Let's put those aside. This is why I have a hard time saying, like, well, I don't really want to consider this a Gundam series because Build Fighters feels more like an anime series. Like something that's outside of the Gundam franchise. Now, Gundam is anime itself, but it has its own themes, it has its own elements, it has its own consistency through every single series so far in the franchise. Build Fighters and everything that in the Build lineup differs from the Gundam franchise, but utilizes Gundams and mobile suits and Gunpla in homage and respect towards the Gundam franchise. So it's a little bit hard for me right there. So this is where I say, take away all the Gundam core elements and a lot of the expectations of what a Gundam series is like. Build Fighters does a really great job of like making it accessible for everybody, fans and non-fans alike. Again, you could jump into this series. This is, I wouldn't say necessarily it's standalone-ish, but it's the first of its series. It's standalone by itself, really, and you can add on more to it with GM Counterattack, Battlogue, and of course, when we go into the sequel, Try Fighters, which doesn't have a whole lot compared to this, and you'll find out when you hear my review on that one. But key point is that it's standalone, it's accessible, and it makes it more so accessible for both fans and non-fans alike. Again, for fans, a lot of what we're already familiar with, what we've seen in previous series, but paying a lot of respect to that. At the same time, making a series that's a lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun, a lot more jump-inable, right? Like, you can get into the series, you can just pop an episode and you can just jump into it and have a lot more fun with it too for the non-fans, and to get them interested not only in Gundam itself but also in Gunpla. I really want to aim it for Gundam itself though. But it's a seriously very lighthearted entry point into the Gundam franchise. So what if you want to introduce someone who's even younger, right? And maybe a lot of the war elements might not be that great, or even some of the darker stuff, like stuff that you would see in Zeta, Victory, or Iron-Blooded Orphans, might not be great for a kid, right? Depending on how you want to look at it or how you want to raise them up. No judgment here, but this series is accessible for everybody. It applies for everybody. And it's a fantastic entry point for anybody, young or older. And we'll get them into Gundam, basically. So I think this is a fantastic jumping point. Be it you a longtime hardened Gundam fan, or you have absolutely no idea about what Gundam is. And just like my entire thing is, I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I watch this first? Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll have fun. You get a lot of little homages and cameos. And then when you do jump into other Gundam series, you go like, hey, I remember this character. Hey, I remember this suit. Hey, this location looks really, really familiar. I think you're going to get a blast. It's kind of like the vice versa if you think about it too. Fans are going to be like me, go like, well, I remember that suit. I know that character. I know that location. Then you flip it around for non-fans who watch this series first and then go to any other series and do exactly that. I remember this suit. Oh, I know that character, or I recognize that character. Oh, I recognize this place. So I think that's kind of cool. Nice little opposite paralleling, you know? And as for a overall, again, Build Fighters is just a fun series overall. It is definitely a very unconventional Gundam series, but it works so well. It's a very straightforward shonen story that has a lot of build up towards the championship arc, and it has a lot of character building and tons and tons and tons of Gundam homages, cameos, suits, locations. Honestly, I feel like this series can appeal to anybody, be it you a longtime Gundam fan or a person who's never watched Gundam in their entire life and coming into this series. And while some elements might not really be compatible for certain particular portions of what I've just described, Gundam fans not liking a lot of the storyline because it's not like in lieu with anything Gundam, or anime fans just not really caring about a lot of the Gundam aspects or whatnot. What really is going to drive this series for those people is the action in this series. It's a lot of fun to watch, unique and interesting. Honestly, Gundam Build Fighters is an easily accessible series and a very easy series to get into. Again, be it that you are a fan or a non-fan of Gundam. That being said, Gundam Build Fighters gets a amazing 4 out of 5. Yeah, this was a really, really fun series to watch. I know I was kind of like scattered a little bit here because it's a very different Gundam series. It's hard to really describe other than talking about what is directly itself and how it's not correlating to Gundam necessarily, but then it does. That being said, kind of feel like building more Gunpla now. But other than that, though, I do want to thank you for watching this review here. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about Gundam Build Fighters? Did you like the series? Did you not like the series? What do you think about my comments about the series? Did you agree with me? Disagree with me? I want to hear it all. Leave something down below. And until the next nerdy reviews, I will see you guys next time. Take care.